And let's start, Vicki, you're actually in our first square up there. Vicki, if you would tell us how your week went, and then we'll just go around the circle.
Right. I drove to Oklahoma City on Thursday, and I got to have lunch with a friend from home. She's moved to Oklahoma City in the last few years. And then I got to see my son, who's a dentist. So I went for a dental appointment, and you know, it's a long way to drive, but anyway, I get to spend some time with my son. And then I spent 2 nights with them, and we just had the best time. We played games, and we laughed. I haven't laughed that much in a long time, and it's just such good, you know, it's just good to be with family. But anyway, had a good time, and I'm doing great. And I was going to tell you, I had that trip to Israel and Jordan, and Petra was in there, Egypt last spring, and we had to cancel it, of course. And so all I have right now are vouchers. So I'm just going to have to rebook it, and she's not offered it to us again. So we're working on that. But I did book another. I'm going on a safari, so that'll be fun. But
that will be fun.
That till next April, I think, March. So,
Wonderful.
right.
Wonderful.
But I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. Joyce, how are you and Ken?
We're doing great. I had my last cataract surgery on Tuesday, and yeah, it went well. And now I'm waiting 3 weeks to have another refraction, and then I'll probably continue wearing glasses. I don't like this reading glass bit, taking them off and putting them on. So anyway, and Ken is doing great. He's not having any pain, so
Good.
We're good.
Good. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Terry, how are you and Jim doing?
We're doing fine. Just, you know, just staying busy.
Well, good.
As I alluded to earlier today with family.
That's great. That is great. And Jerry, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I am especially grateful for the beautiful day so that we can do the church in the lot. I am in need of a human touch. Yes, you know, just seeing somebody else. I'm very thankful, and I'm
Wonderful.
doing well. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Laura, how are you and Ray doing?
We're doing fine. What Vicki said about going and seeing her son, who was a optometrist, reminded me of my sister, who is an her son was a dentist, and my sister was an optometrist. It reminded me of how we saved so much money when it happened, but then my sister died in 2013, so that was over. So now I'm back with the usual people, have to pay their regular rates and all that stuff. But we're doing good, and my endoscopy went real well.
Good.
Good. Wonderful. Kay, how are you and Jim doing?
Doing great. Just we're here.
Well, great. Well, great. But I don't see Jim yet, but he'll probably join us here in a minute.
He will.
Okay. Good. Tracy, how are you doing?
Doing good, guys. Had a good week, enjoying this beautiful weather, and got outside and worked in the yard for a while yesterday. That felt nice. So everything's good.
Wonderful.
Good.
Wonderful. And Anna, how are you doing? Do you have a new washer?
Not yet. Friday.
Friday. Okay.
Friday.
Okay. Are you doing all right?
Yep. Learned how to do drywall patching and carpentry and wrapping pipes. I mean, I'm just like, you know, I'm a handy woman now.
All right. I like it. You better not tell too many people that, but that's good. I like it. I like it. That's great. Brian, how are you doing?
Doing all right. I went to see my hand surgeon for the 3rd or 4th time. It's been 4 months since I fell and landed on my hands. And only this last time did he tell me it'll take 9 to 12 months for them to completely stop hurting. He said, but between now and then, he said, you'll do, you know, something here and there that'll trigger them. So there's a word to the wise: be careful when you fall.
No kidding.
Yes.
No kidding.
I also did some yard work. All the experts keep saying, don't bag them, don't bag those leaves, mulch them. And there were so many leaves, though my yard didn't look that great when I was done. And one day later, you can hardly tell I did anything. All all of the people around me don't spend any money to take care of their trees. So they're, even though my tree's pretty clean, their live oaks just dump bushels and
Yes,
bushels
yes.
of leaves on my yard. So I'm gonna continue to go back out there probably once a week. I thought I had lost 11 bushes due to the freeze, but I went and did that little down by the soil. I scratched the branches on all of them, and they're all green inside.
Good.
They probably won't look that great this year, but I think they will survive.
Good.
And
Nobody else
that's-
can look good either.
yeah, we'll all kind of have puny and sort of brown
Yes,
plants.
yes. It's gonna be us.
I have gone back to my gym. The only reason I wasn't going was because it hurt my hands to use the equipment, and because Governor Abbott has called off all of the COVID precautions, my gym no longer feels like they need to have them either. So
Oh,
I
boy.
still think it's too soon. I think that place is still a location where the virus can be easily spread, but it's mostly Highland Park High School kids and SMU college students, and they weren't doing it anyway. They were not following the protocols anyway. So
Mm.
yeah, they don't think they don't think they'll get it, or that they'll get that sick from it. So, but anyhow, I've had both of the shots now, so I'm not so worried about it either.
Good. Okay, good. Bonnie, how are you and Robert doing?
We're doing good. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Don and Barbara, you guys are back from College Station. How are you guys doing? Don and Barbara, you there?
Can you hear us?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. I think Don already told you about the Bounds move and so forth. We got our second shot 2 weeks ago today, so we feel good about that. And I think Don mentioned just keep John Bounds in your prayers, that he will find another trial that will work to fight his cancer.
Okay, we sure will. We sure will. Okay, thank you for that, Don and Barbara. Linda Gelser, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Everybody okay?
Good, we're
Yep.
good. Okay. Okay, Sandra, how about you? How are you doing?
Doing well, had an uneventful week, trimming trees and cleaning gutters, and Dennis catching up on all the things we couldn't do before. So yeah, all is well. Thanks.
Yes, we're having a second fall now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And Diana, how are you doing? Diana, are you?
I'm doing well. I wanted to make sure I was unmuted. Doing well.
And you have two prayer requests, right? That you
Two
like
prayer requests. Please continue to pray for Pam, my coworker, who's looking, actually now I have three. Pam, my coworker, who's looking for a place for her mother to live. They already thought they found a place, but then her long-term care insurance got denied. So now they can't afford to keep her there. And now my sister is going through something similar with her mother-in-law in Athens, Tennessee. So, yeah, just the problem there is going to be getting her to move out of her house. And then my coworker, Christina, she and her husband, I believe, have been trying for a while to have a baby, and she got put on bed rest this week. She's 20 weeks along. And so now she's high risk, and she's going to have to be basically on bed rest until the baby comes. So, yeah.
Wow. Wow. So what is your mother-in-law's name?
Mary Watkins.
Mary Watkins. Okay, and that's Andrea's your sister, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. We'll pray for them. Here come the Mershawns. Patty, how are you doing?
Oh, we're doing well. Just Travis is having a busy week, but hopes to be back with us next week.
Good, good. We'll tell him we missed him.
I will. Thank you.
Alice, how are you doing?
I'm doing super.
Good.
I got my second shot, so
Wonderful.
I feel like I've completed something.
Wonderful. That is wonderful. And Ron and Lisa, how are you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing good. How you?
We're good. We're good. Thanks. Laura and I we just told everybody that this during our power outage and all that, our bromeliad that Sandra gave us one time did not fare so well. But our Christmas cactus is blooming because it was so cold in the house. It thinks it's Christmas time again. So and we've had our second shot. We have grandchildren here today. And I just paid $29.99 to watch the Disney new premiere of whatever that movie is. And I'm hoping that's a pacifier. So we'll see how this goes.
That's
Okay.
a movie.
Has everybody in this group had at least one shot?
Well, some people are not eligible. I may not be old enough. But
Okay.
Yeah.
I get mine tomorrow.
Good.
Is this number one, Lisa?
Yeah, number one, Ron's had number one. So in about 3 weeks, we'll get number two.
Okay, all right. Now, is it my understanding, Laura and I got ours 2 weeks ago, our second shot 2 weeks ago today. Are we now street legal, or does it take 4 weeks for me to?
Nope, you're street legal.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. It's 2 weeks. Okay, good. We're street legal.
Good.
Okay, well, we'll see several of you tonight at the church in the lot. All right, let's, is anybody else have anything to add before we give this to Terry? And Terry, thanks for teaching us again. We appreciate it. Anything else to add? If not, I'm going to mute everyone, and then Terry, if you'll unmute yourself, you can go. Go, it's all yours, Terry.
Okay. Well, first, I looked at this lesson. I taught it 2 years ago, and I must have really talked fast. I love historical background, and I gave you an overdose of history. So I'm going to try to control the history teacher in me today. And as usual, jump in with comments or questions, whatever. I'm this year, as I prepared this lesson, I've used several sources, as I always do, but I'm relying mainly on Jamie Clark Soule's book, Reading John for Dear Life, the chapter 13 in that book. Clark Soules is an SMU professor, and she has just published a book for the interpretations commentaries that Wiltshire has that focuses on women in the Bible. So she's really good. What else can I say? The people who wrote the curriculum for this 2-year study, today's central question is the question Pilate asked Jesus, what is truth? So when you hear what is truth, what comes to mind with that question? If you want to just unmute and jump in, or if you want to think about it and come in later.
My first thought is the blind justice holding the scales.
Okay.
First thought is facts.
Facts. Someone else? Well, sometimes, I think we do tend to think in terms of facts, but the problem is that we have all these abstract nouns that you can pick your own facts for. Love, friendship, we can just go through so many different things. There's no doubt that we try to use facts when getting to truth, but truth is more fundamental. It's more abstract. It can be very obvious at times, but it can be very elusive at times, especially given wherever we are in our lives at the moment. And you take a word like love, it can mean different things to different people. I know there are some women who love to get roses. I have to tell you, Jim's been washing dishes for the better part of 56 years. And for me, that's love, because I don't do dishes. He does. So we can look for truth, but sometimes a lot more is involved than when we start to delve into it. So Next question. What's your favorite saying about truth? You have one?
The one from University of Texas across the big tower, you shall know the truth and it shall set you free.
And that's right out of Jesus. Anyone else? Well, I think my favorite one is from President Garfield, who added to Jesus's comment, "The truth will set you free, but first it makes you miserable." And I think most of us have experienced that. We have come to a truth, and we would have much preferred to come to a different truth. So the Gospel of John could really be subtitled the Gospel of Truth. And John offers, for instance, he often refers to the Holy Spirit as the Spirit of Truth. And he has this light is a metaphor for truth in John. So when we're dealing with John, we really are looking at truth. Now, when Jesus made that comment about you will know the truth and the truth will set you free, it's in John 8:23, and he's speaking to some Jews who seem to be believers, but this is what he says to them. If you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. So this is really keyed into his teachings. Next question. Which teachings of Jesus have helped you stay focused on the truth of Jesus? What are some of your favorite teachings by Jesus? Anyone want to jump in? A parable?
For me,
Ryan?
maybe what he called the two greatest commandments: to love God and to love your neighbor.
Yeah. Someone else? I think one of the things that he did when he talked about truth, and when we look for his truth, we can also go back to the passage when he starts his ministry in Luke. It's in Luke 4. It's 18 through 21. The Spirit of the Lord is on me because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom for the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to release the oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. And that last one, the year of the Lord's favor, if you don't remember, is the Jubilee year, which was, I think, supposed to happen every 50 years, and debts were to be forgiven. It was sort of a reset of everything. So when we're looking at this idea of truth, Jesus really kind of tells us, you need to focus on what I taught. You need to focus on what I did, what my goals were, to make life better for people and for people to live within the will of God. So a couple of questions to be thinking about as we go through this. How does the truth taught by Jesus free people? And personally, what ideas or actions did you feel like you had to give up or forego if you were going to follow Jesus's teachings? And I have to tell you, one of the hardest for me is in Luke. Jesus asks a lot of questions. And in Luke, he says, do you expect to be rewarded for loving the lovable? Even non-believers love the lovable. You're called to love the unlovable. I could have done without that. That's tough. So we have to start thinking about attitudes and actions that we might have to give up if we're going to follow Jesus's teaching. So think about that as we go through this. So let me refresh your memory on the historical setting for these trials. And I reduced this from 2 pages to 2 paragraphs. So we're ahead of the game, I hope. Rome appointed the high priests of the temple, and they juggled the religious, the cultural, the civil interests of the Jews and the political interests of the Romans within the Jewish community. The Sanhedrin was the sort of council, if you will, that dealt with these issues, and they presided over trials. It was made up of 71 people. They were priests, scribes, aristocrats, and wealthy individuals. And at some point, they could take on criminal cases. Now, according to the experts, while capital punishment by stoning was practiced by Jews, there's some contradiction as to whether or not they could practice stoning at this time, but they could practice capital punishment. Capital punishment was really under the control of Rome. So basically, if the Jewish authorities wanted Jesus dead, they were going to have to use Jewish power to do it. It helped that they could claim to those who liked Jesus later on that it was the Romans who killed Jesus, not them. So, you know, Rome didn't like trouble. So any potential troublemaker was probably dead on arrival. And of course, it did not help that Jesus was from Galilee, which was a hotbed of political protest against Roman rule and Jewish collaboration with Rome. The temple was not only the center of worship, it was also the power center of Jewish life in Jerusalem. And the temple, there had been some problems at the temple, different kinds of problems in the past, but the Romans had been very quick and brutal in the way they dealt with it. So the temple authorities were not only concerned about the cleansing of the temple, it was the uproar that would come with something like that. And of course, they were also not too happy with what he was teaching in the temple and how popular he was. You remember that in when we were doing Palm Sunday and he was teaching in the temple that week, how amazed the people were at his teaching and his healing. So the temple authorities were pretty concerned about what was going on. So you had both blasphemy and insurrection as possible charges that they could make against Jesus. Now, that's the history lesson, okay? So when you read the accounts, and we have 4 accounts, they don't agree in every detail, but in the larger scenario, they do, in the sense that Jesus had to have a trial before the Jewish authorities before he could be taken to Pilate. So while there are varying details, overall, the 4 Gospels do touch on blasphemy and sedition, and there is the order. So they're also, the Gospels, according to the experts, have different concerns. Mark suggests that the Jewish authorities were concerned primarily with the temple, while Luke says it's more about their concern over what Jesus is teaching. And John points to a fear among Jewish authorities that Jesus's rising popularity could lead to an uprising that would provoke a political response. And John's trial is with Pilate is really going to focus on the kingship of Jesus. So basically what we have from the experts is each of the gospel is sort of concentrating on a different audience. Luke and Mark, Gentiles, Matthew, Jewish. But of course, John is all about the theology of truth as revealed by Jesus. So therefore you get the question, what is truth? So as we go through this, remember this, John, as I said before, is a gospel of contrast. And because there are so many contrasting situations that John is using to develop his theology, we also get all of this irony in the account of Jesus's arrest and the trials. And to just begin with, perhaps the biggest irony of all is, when is this taking place? Passover. Now, what do we know about Passover? Why do they celebrate Passover? Well, the angel of death in Egypt had passed over. And while all of these Egyptians are dying, the Jews are not touched. So now, at this very significant moment in Jewish history, we have the contrast. They are ready to kill Jesus, who could be described as the angel of life, particularly earthly life lived within God's will. How do you really want to live? And Jesus is talking about how to really have a life that is pleasing to God, because he's the personification in John of God's truth. So in essence, they're trying to kill truth. Last week we ended with his arrest, but I wanted to follow up on John's account because of when they go into the garden to arrest Jesus, he asks, "Who are you seeking?" And they say, "Jesus of Nazareth." So, and he responds with, "I am he." Now, according to Clark Souls, this phrase in Greek can be translated as "I am" or "I am he." And one way it's "I am human," but it is also "I am God." So if you remember, well, I think we talked about it just a bit, but in John, when he says, "I am he," the high priest, the people in that group coming to arrest him, fall back. They react in a stunned kind of way. So that suggests that perhaps in John, they are taking his "I am he" to his saying, "I am God." And this would certainly be reason for blasphemy, since you weren't even supposed to say the name of God. Remember, the Jews have a different name that they use. So that is sort of the setup up here. So let's start with the trials. If you'll turn to John 18 in your Bibles, Jesus in John is taken to Annas, who was the high priest, and he's the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who is the current high priest. And of course, he's taken there at night. So would someone read 18 verses 19 through 24? Anyone?
Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered, "If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest.
Okay, in some translations, when Jesus says, but if I have spoken rightly, it'll say, if I have spoken truth. So what do you pick up on this passage? You know, what's kind of going on here? Jesus is speaking openly, and he says, nothing I've said that I haven't said openly to everyone. And it kind of goes back to that thing when they come to arrest him, when he says, I've been in the temple all week teaching. Why didn't you arrest me then, in essence? But now it's not. And John, you know, it's that idea of wrong often is done in darkness. So and what we have here is when he speaks, we have common behavior by power. Even though truth has witnesses, the people in charge of this moment, they're not interested in checking out his story. They've decided what the story is, in essence. So truth is rewarded with violence. And that's what we have in this passage. Truth doesn't matter because it's something else entirely is going on here. There's another purpose. Now, in the other Gospels, Caiaphas heads up the trial of Jesus, but in John, he's just a passing reference. Now, Clark's soul says this is because John expects you to have read John in chapter 11, because in chapter 11, as the high priest, Caiaphas has already decided that what Jesus is doing is going to upset the Romans, that there's potential for revolt here among the people. And he's convinced the other authorities that if one man dies for the nation, it will save the nation. Now, how ironic is that? Caiaphas is speaking ultimate truth here, that if Jesus dies, people will be saved, but he doesn't realize it. He's thinking totally in political terms, totally in his power terms, rather than kind of ultimate power and ultimate truth. So according to Clark Souls, Caiaphas would not have had anything to add to this. So even though he is sent to this high priest, it's just a passing reference, and then he is taken to Pilate, Jesus has had his Jewish trial, so now he can go to the Romans. Now, I'm going to summarize verses 28 through 33. When the crowd, when the high priests who are handling this, and the people under the high priest, and whoever is following along, arrive at the governor's palace, the Jewish people, the Jewish leaders in particular, will not go into the palace, to the Roman palace, because if they do, they can't participate in the Passover meal. They will be defiled according to Jewish law by entering this pagan place. But of course, they are truly defiling themselves by what they want to do to Jesus. Now, historically, Pilate was not known as a good governor. But in this passage, he really kind of comes across as at least trying to do the right thing, but he is pushed by the high priest and the crowd to do something else. And then he goes out to hear them. And he says, well, tell me what he did wrong. But they said, well, if he weren't a criminal, we wouldn't bring him to you. So they never really say what he's guilty of at this point. And when Pilate tells them, you deal with it, they say, but we can't deal with it because we can't execute people. And this is where some of the experts get a little off as far as, well, they could have stoned him under some rule. But at this point, it's focused on getting Pilate to do what they want to do. And I don't know, there is something about what comes after this that is a revolving door. Have you seen comedies? I tried to think of one where some person gets caught in a revolving door and they're just going round and round. And it's both scary and funny. I mean, have any of you ever gotten caught in a revolving door? But this is kind of what happens here with Pilate. He goes inside and he takes Jesus inside. And this is when the whole question of Jesus's kingship comes into full play. But obviously, that's what Pilate would be concerned about, would be, is this political competition for me? So as we read, think about the central points of conversation, of what it seems to cover. So let's start. Would someone read 33 through 38? Okay, thanks.
Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is the truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them.
I'm sorry. Let's stop right there, okay?
Okay.
So Pilate brings Jesus in and he talks to him. And if you'll notice, there's a shift in 34. Pilate, you're thinking he's going to be asking the questions here. And then in 34, who asked the question? And the rest of the conversation then goes in the direction that Jesus directs it. He's offering Pilate a chance to move to a deeper understanding of what kingdom means. But Pilate's responses, are all about earthly political power, if you will. Your people, your chief priest handed you over. So what have you done that they want me to, execute you? And he in this, when Pilate asks this question, what is truth? Do you think he wants an answer? Is there any indication he wants an answer?
No, I think he was thinking that he was trying to defer it. Like there are many truths, and you're espousing one of them.
Yeah. Your truth, my truth. Anyone else? What Jesus says, everyone on the side of the truth listens to me. And this kind of goes back to what he said earlier when he talks about the truth will set you free. So they're going to listen to his teachings. So as we look here, Clark Soule says that basically in this exchange, what we get is the difference between the kingdom of God, truth, and the truth by earthly powers. She describes it this way: Pilate, power for selfish ends. Jesus empowers others and serves others. Pilate, he uses his terror, his military, his policing power to enforce a peace, whereas Jesus tries to help people find peace in the middle of fear. And you notice how calm Jesus is in all of this. This is one of the remarkable things about this whole passage, if you haven't picked up on it. He has left the Garden of Gethsemane totally ready for whatever comes. His sense of God's presence with him has empowered him, if you will, to go through whatever it is that he's going to have to go through. Another thing that she says, that basically earthly power is all about dividing people. And Jesus's power, God's power, is about uniting people. And in the garden where he tells the disciple to put away the sword, and he doesn't want fighting over his arrest. And of course, ultimately, the difference is that Pilate serves at the pleasure of Caesar. Whatever power, whatever authority he has is very temporary if he upsets Caesar. Whereas Jesus's authority comes from God. His power, his authority, his truth comes from what he is teaching about how God wants us to live.
Terry,
Yeah.
one thing that you said last week has stuck with me all week. And I never thought of it before, but you said when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, that was the real trial. These other things were just a course of events. And maybe that fit into why you're saying he was so calm on that, because the real wrestling and anguish, happened a week earlier or last week in the Garden of Gethsemane.
Yeah. That was his, we don't, I think we struggle sometimes to think that Jesus had a choice there, but if you listen to his prayer, it would appear that he has a choice, and so I thank you for remembering that, Dennis, and bringing it up. So now the revolving door starts. Pilate goes out after speaking to Jesus, and in verses 38b through 40, he tells the crowd that he can't find any guilt. But being a good politician, he wants them to be happy. So he gives them an option of either releasing Jesus or releasing Barabbas. Now, what is so ironic about this? Different translations, I don't know if you have a translation, what translation you have, but some of them will say, I think, robber, but some of them say insurrectionist. I think one even says partisan, which would be like an insurrectionist. One of them says, I think literally says political agitator. So here is the irony of they're afraid Jesus is going to lead an uprising, but they're turning around and they're choosing someone who apparently was known as a political agitator. But Pilate, I'm sure he's thinking, man, I can get out of this, but I'm projecting onto him, obviously. But he wants it both ways. He wants to satisfy the crowd, but he doesn't really want to execute someone he sees as innocent. So he goes back inside. And for some reason, it doesn't say why, he has Jesus whipped and the soldiers dress him up like a king and mock him. And they slap him. And then Pilate goes outside a second time, and this time he brings Jesus with him, who's dressed up in these royal robes. So in 4 through 7, he says, once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him. When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, here's the man. Now, they use the word for human there. But I can't help but think about all of our slang terms today, where we talk about he's the man, and here he is, he's saying that, and in truth, Jesus is the man. you know, in terms of what he stands for. So, but of course, the chief priests and officials, they're crying out, crucify, crucify. But Pilate answered, you take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him. The Jewish leaders insisted, we have a law, and according to the law, he must die because he claimed to be the Son of God. Now, suddenly we've shifted with the Jewish leaders, from this kingship political thing now to he claims to be the Son of God, which is blasphemy. So we get both of this insurrection and blasphemy charge into this trial before Pilate. And it's interesting, Pilate's reaction. It scares him. In verse 8, he says, when Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back into the side the palace, and he takes Jesus back with him, of course. Where do you come from? He asked Jesus, but Jesus gave him no answer. Do you refuse to speak to me? Pilate said, don't you realize I have power either to free you or to crucify you? Jesus answered, you have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. So now Pilate's back inside with Jesus. He's talking to him again. And Jesus is not responding. I don't know, but I mean, I think most of us have been in situations where we're upset and we're asking questions and we're not getting a response from the person. And what happens? It's almost like there's a power shift. In this moment, who's got the power? Jesus does. The person who doesn't respond can have the power. So he must have really been frightened at this point, because once again, Pilate fails to understand that the bigger truth is in play. Jesus explains that what is happening is out of Pilate's hands, despite the power that he has. And that very last statement, Jesus says, therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin. What comes to mind when you say that, when you hear that? Got a name? Judas?
Judas.
I think that's probably the natural, but according to some of the authorities, Jesus is almost saying this situation is between God, the Jews, and Jesus. Now, my NIV suggests that Caiaphas, or however you say the guy's name, is the one that might be referenced here, but not Judas. Because Judas is a minor player ultimately in this. That they were going after Jesus. And remember in the garden, as I said earlier, did they really need Jesus? I mean, Judas to identify Jesus? Because he'd been in Jerusalem and in the temple for days. So this may go more to this whole idea of truth, and that this situation at this point in time, in a sense, the Romans might not be expected to get it at what Jesus was all about, the truth of God, but the Jews ought to get it, and that's kind of a when you stop to think about it, in a sense, do the people who understand, who have had a history with God, so to speak, are they more responsible for understanding? And that's certainly a question that as Christians, when we see a problem and we are tempted to follow our political, cultural way versus what we understand is God's will, are we more guilty than people who don't claim to be Christians, and don't claim to have any relationship with God? So it's kind of an uncomfortable question to think about, but I think it's one we sometimes have to, we need to think about. And of course, the other side of that coin is, how do we react when we see people who don't say they believe in Jesus, acting in Jesus' ways, acting out Jesus's truth better than Christians are doing it? So a lot of stuff comes up in that question about who's responsible, and where we are. So here we go again. In 1912 through 16, Pilate goes out for the third time. Now, far be it from me to mention 3. It's complete. As it was last week when we dealt with some of the events. From then on, he takes Jesus out with him. From then on, Pilate tried to release him, but the Jews kept shouting, "If you release this man, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who declares himself a king is defying Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat on the judgment seat at a place called the Stone Pavement, which in Aramaic is Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation for the Passover, about the 6th hour, and Pilate said to the Jews, "Here is your king." At this they shouted, away with him, crucify him." "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," replied the chief priests. Finally, Pilate handed him over to be crucified. Now, here you have the high priest saying, "We have no king but Caesar." They have made the final transition away from God. These are guys who wouldn't even enter the Roman space for fear of defiling themselves and to show the priority of God in their lives. And now they declare that their sole loyalty is to Caesar. And they accuse Pilate of being disloyal to Caesar. So he gives them what they want. Of course, they don't really grasp with whom they are dealing. Jesus is completely committed to the truth of God and can calmly move through this trial, which in many ways has been a complete farce as far as justice is concerned. So in conclusion, let me say this. The trial of Jesus raises some serious questions, but the most important is what is truth. More specifically, for a Jesus believer, how do I live his teachings? I asked earlier that you think about the following. How does the truth taught by Jesus free people to live his teachings? And what ideas or actions have you had to forgo to follow Jesus's teaching? I would suggest that if we look seriously at the people who are touched by Jesus' truth, we see transformation. The woman at the well, Nicodemus, the disciples eventually get it, and they are radically committed to his teachings and his truth after his resurrection. But what we see that Jesus's teachings are not about a transactional religion, not a quid pro quo, where we believe in him in order to get to heaven or to get our prayers answered or to get rich or to have an easy life. His truth is not about self. It's about others. It's not about power. It's about servanthood. It is about transformation. We are in the Lenten season. It's a time to reevaluate where we are in our relationship with God and what we have allowed to interfere with the truth of Jesus. Our Lenten theme is dying to live. Hopefully, dying to live Jesus' truth. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate your lesson very much. I've got a couple of things. First of all, Carolyn, you joined us in progress. Carolyn Strickland, how are you doing?
Forward to spring.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here. And Jim, we're glad you joined us on this. And Jim, you had a birthday on March 2nd. Happy birthday to you. We're glad you had that one. We're glad to see you. I wanted to add, David Baskin is not with us this morning. I think he's helping take care of his mom, but his mom was admitted to the hospital this week. And I put that out on our Facebook page that Diana set up for us for our class. And I appreciate David reaching out to us on that. That's he's the newest member of the church and has joined our class, He's been Zooming with us. And his mom had to be entered in the hospital, and turns out she had 2 large kidney stones that finally got dislodged, but haven't passed fully yet. But she was having some real problems. And the other thing is, just wanted to give you a heads up that Jenna Sullivan, a member of Second Baptist Little Rock, I don't know if you've heard about that, Carolyn, will be teaching us next week. So that's the kind of the things that we wanted to cover. Anybody else have anything else to say before Vicki closes us in prayer? If not, let's go ahead and Vicki, go ahead and lead us, please.
Okay. Pray with me. Our most gracious Heavenly Father and loving God, we just praise you today for praises that have been shared and positive things that have happened in our lives, and the fact that the snow is gone and the temperatures are better, and we do have sunshine today, and most did not have a lot of damage in our group, and I praise you for that. And I do again, thank you for the sunshine. Thank you for the friendships that we have here. Thank you for the lesson today that Terry brought. It just opens our eyes a little more just to hear another point of view. And she does so much research to help us to really understand better what we're studying. And Lord, we have a lot of people today who have real serious needs, and sometimes it's friends of friends. But today we just want to ask for prayer for David's mom. She has been released from the hospital. David Baskin, our new church member, and those kidney stones. So that's good news from him about her. And I just pray today for Diane Early's friend and coworker Pam. They're trying to find a place for her mother to live, and it's just such a difficult journey and trial to go through that and find a place that's affordable, because everything is so out of sight. And the mother's also dealing with lung cancer. So I just pray that you be with Pam and her family as they work with those problems that they're dealing with her mom. And Diane's sister's mother-in-law, she also needs a place to stay. So I just pray that you would take care of that need for them. Diane has a co-worker and friend who's expecting a baby. They worked for a long time to get this baby here, and now she's going to have to be on bed rest for this. That's a long time to be on bed rest. I just pray that you will give them patience, that you will protect that baby and protect her life as she goes through this time. And I just pray that in time they will have a healthy, happy baby, and mom will be fine. So just please take care of them and guard them. Pray for Laura Snow's cousin and her husband. She just has some really serious health problems. My granddaughter Maddie's doing great in Cambodia, and we just appreciate you guarding her and protecting her and keeping her safe and helping her to learn God's true mission for her life. I pray today that you be with Seth Garner, my young friend, 46, that is in the hospital on a ventilator, and they cannot seem to get him off the ventilator, and they kind of gave him a time limit for that. And I just pray that you will help the doctors be patient, but also, encouraging him to work to breathe on his own. And they're going to start that again tomorrow to try to wean him for a few hours every day to get him off that. It's a COVID pneumonia, but he is better today. Every day he's a little better. And Lord, Anna Hines, Casa child, in her mess at her house, oh, that's so difficult. I just pray that you will be with her and that things are getting done in time, a timely manner. That this Casa child that needs to be adopted, I just pray that that can go through smoothly in April. It's not very far away. And I just pray that you will be in all of those circumstances to have that happen like it should. And Bert is having severe back pain. So I just pray that the doctors will be able to find his source of pain. And I know how that is. It's not much fun to deal with. So I just pray that you be with him. And be with Faye as she deals with her, the care of her mother and her husband. And it's just not a great situation, but every time I talk to her, she just has the sweetest attitude about it. And I know that you love her and you care for her and you see her needs. And I just pray that you would help her with that and help us to be able to be there for her in whatever we can do as a class. And I pray for Alice's friend Sally that she's dealing with a new spot of cancer, and I just pray that you'd comfort her and give her peace and give her continued healing. And Bill Brewster, he probably has started his radiation by now. I'm not sure, but I pray that you will be with him and that treatment will be successful. And we're just thankful for Greg Patton's news that he did get to go home from he had the COVID pneumonia and was in the hospital for 5 weeks. So that's a praise, and we're so thankful for that. And we just need healing in our country, and we just need everybody vaccinated so that we have that herd community and people feel safer. And I think we all feel a weight lifted already, even with one shot, and especially with two. Not that we can let our guard down, but just help us to be patient with others that don't feel that it's important. So help us to do what's right and have the right attitude toward others that are not so excited about getting the vaccine. I pray today that you would be with John Bounds with his cancer, and that they will hopefully find another trial that will work for him and be successful for him. And Shirley Lamb, our friend in New Song, with this rare kind of cancer, Lord, I just, they've not given her any hope, and she's just waiting. But she has the sweetest, godly attitude about this. And when Gentle Voices sang to her last Sunday on her car in her carport, it was such a blessing to us that she was so grateful that we came and we just sang all those old gospel hymns to her, and it lifted her spirits. And there was just so much love under that carport that day as we tried to sing with masks on and social distance to bring her some joy. And I just pray that you give her peace and comfort, and just she feels your love all around her. Lord, I thank you today for Dennis and Laura who lead, and Diana that keep us all connected. This is such a special group, and we do need each other. And I thank you for the calls that we get from each other, because they lift my spirits, and as I hope we lift others' spirits as we do that. And seems like now that's basically all we can do except pray for each other. So we have that, and that's really important. So thank you, Lord, for blessing our lives. Thank you for these special friends and foundations. And I thank you that the church gets to meet today, and part of us can be there for that today, and that many of us maybe will get to be there at Easter because there are 3 services. And I just thank you for Wilshire and what it means to us. And I just ask these things and pray for these things and celebrate you today in Jesus' name.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great afternoon. Terry, thanks again for leading us. It was great. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you,
Bye.
Terry.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Yes.
Terry.
Have a great week.
Carolyn.
Dennis and Laura, enjoy those grandkids.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We'll see if that movie paid off. That's right. That's right. It's called Raya the Dragon or something. I don't know. I've never heard of it, but apparently it's premiered this weekend. So
You've learned an important lesson, bribery works.
that's right. You guys have a great week. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Guys.
Bye-bye.